The Herodian kingdom of Judea was a client state of the Roman Republic from 37 BCE, when Herod the Great was appointed king of the Jews by the Roman Senate. When Herod died in 4 BCE, the kingdom was divided among his sons into the Herodian Tetrarchy. Antipater the Idumean, born 113 or 114 BCE, died in 43 BCE, was the founder of the Herodian dynasty and father of Herod the Great. According to Josephus, he was the son of Antipas and had formerly held that name. A native of Edom, southeast of Judah, between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, which under the Romans came to be known as Idumea, Antipater became a powerful official under the later Hasmonean kings and subsequently became a client of the Roman general Pompey the Great when Pompey conquered Judah in the name of Roman Republic. When Julius Caesar defeated Pompey, Antipater rescued Caesar in Alexandria and was made chief minister of Judea, as Judah became known to the Romans with the right to collect taxes. Antipater eventually made his sons Phasaelus and Herod the governor of Jerusalem in Galilee, respectively. After the assassination of Caesar, Antipater was forced to side with Gaius Cassius Longinus against Mark Antony. The pro-Roman politics of Antipater led to his increasing unpopularity among the devout, non-Hellenized Jews. He died by poison. The diplomacy and artful politics of Antipater, as well as his insinuation into the Hasmonean court, paved the way for the rise of his son Herod the Great, who used his position to marry the Hasmonean princess Mariamne, endear himself to Rome, and become king of Judea under Roman influence. Herod was born in around 72 BCE in Idumea, south of Judea. He was the second son of Antipater the Idumean, a high-ranking official under Ethnarch Hyrcanus II, and Cypros, a Nabatean Arab. Herod's father was by descent an Edomite, whose ancestors had converted to Judaism. Herod was raised as a Jew. For several hundred years there existed south of Judea an ethnic and administrative entity which we call Idumea. While the origins of this entity and the process by which it came to bear debated and will be discussed below, its end is well known. Idumea was conquered by the Hasmonean ruler near the end of the 2nd century BCE, and, at least according to Josephus, some Idumeans seem to have been inducted into the Jewish nation religion in Antiquities 13:257. One well-known result of this was Herod, king of Judea and rebuilder of the Jewish temple, who according to Josephus and additional sources was descended from an Idumean family who had been converted to Judaism. The conquest of Idumea by John Hyrcanus I was the end of the long process. A tradition of a close relationship between Jews and Idumeans, or Edomites, goes back a long way. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people born of you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Genesis 25:23. Said God to Rebekah, You shall not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. Deuteronomy 23:7. God instructed the people of Israel, Is not Esau Jacob's brother? Asked Malachi. With the specifically Jewish collection that we call the Hebrew Bible, Esau and Jacob, the eponymous ancestors of Eden and Israel, were twins. And this influenced the relationship between the descendants throughout the biblical period. While we have no way of knowing what the Edomites thought about the relationship, Edom and Judah, and then Idumea and Judea, were of course geographically very close, so it would stand to reason that their inhabitants would have more than a few cultural traits in common. Many are familiar with the story in Genesis of Esau and Jacob. Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for a pot of lentil stew. We have the story in Genesis 25, verse 19 to 34, Jacob and Esau. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the other will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this his brother came out, with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is a birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Jacob takes Esau's blessing. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basmath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man, and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, get your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in all the presence of the Lord before I die.' Now my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food, just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands with the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she made him. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother. So he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." After Isaac finished blessing him and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from your neck." Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told that her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living." So Esau had taken wives from the Canaanite women, which was pretty offensive to Rebekah and Isaac. He had also taken a wife from the Hittite people, and although the law of Moses hadn't been brought in at that stage, it was still offensive for his parents because they weren't to mix with the pagan or heathen cultures that surrounded them. This is why earlier in Genesis we see Abraham sending Isaac to take a wife from his people, and he meets Rebekah at the well. Then we see the story repeating itself when Jacob goes to Rebekah's brother Laban and he takes a wife from his daughters. Verse 6. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Paddan Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac, so he went to Ishmael and married Mahaleth, the sister of Nebareth and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. I believe the logic here from Esau was that he would marry a daughter of the people of his father's tribe to please his father and his mother. However, the Ishmaelites were from the son that Abraham had with Sarah's handmaiden, the Egyptian Hagar, and they were a people that did not receive the blessing of Abraham, which was given to Isaac, the younger son, also repeated again with Jacob and Esau. So in the long run, all Esau achieved was creating a people of mixed groups from the region. Therefore, the Edomite people, the descendants of Esau, were a mixed nation from the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Ishmaelites, and they mixed the religions of their gods. Was a Hasmonean Maccabean leader and Jewish high priest of the 2nd century BCE, born 164 BCE, reigned from 134 BCE until his death in 104 BCE. In rabbinic literature, he is often referred to as Yohanan Cohen Gadol, John the High Priest. The Hasmonean Civil War was a civil war between two claimants to the Hasmonean Jewish crown. What began as an inter-Jewish conflict became a highly decisive conflict that included the Nabatean kingdom and ended the Roman involvement. This conflict resulted in the loss of Jewish independence. The Nabatean involvement. Antipas the Idumean, a rich Idumean and influential person in the Judean politics, strongly disliked Aristobulus and preferred Hyrcanus the king. He convinced Hyrcanus to fight for the crown and spoke to Aratus III, king of the Nabateans, about the great qualities of Hyrcanus and his birthright and convinced him to support him. One night Hyrcanus escaped and travelled to Petra, capital of the Nabateans, where he gave many gifts to please Aratus. He made a deal with Aratus, offering to return to Nabatea 12 cities that had been taken from them by his father Alexander Janneus. Aratus gave Hyrcanus 50,000 cavalrymen and infantrymen. Aratus' men began advancing towards Jerusalem, defeating Aristobulus' forces. Some switched sides and joined Hyrcanus' army. Aristobulus fell back to Jerusalem, which was laid under siege at Passover of that year. During the first year of John Hyrcanus' reign, he faced a serious challenge to independent Judean rule from the Seleucid Empire. Antiochus VII Sidetes marched to Judea, pillaged the countryside, and laid a year-long siege on Jerusalem. The prolonged siege caused Hyrcanus to remove any Judean from the city who would not assist with the defense effort. These refugees were not allowed to pass through Antiochus' lines, becoming trapped in the middle of a chaotic siege. With a humanitarian crisis on his hands, Hyrcanus readmitted his estranged Jerusalemites when the festival of Sukkot arrived. Afterwards, due to food shortages in Jerusalem, Hyrcanus negotiated a truce with Antiochus. The terms of the truce consisted of 3,000 talents of silver as payment for Antiochus breaking down the walls of Jerusalem, Judean participation in the Seleucid War against the Parthians, and once again Judean recognition of the Seleucid control. These terms were a harsh blow to Hyrcanus, who had to loot the tomb of David to pay the 3,000 talents. Conquest. John Hyrcanus was able to take advantage of unrest in the Seleucid Empire to assist Judean independence and conquer new territories. In 130 BCE, Demetrius II, a former Seleucid king, returned from exile in Hyrcania to take back control of the empire. However, transition of power made it difficult for Demetrius to assist control over Judea. Furthermore, the Seleucid Empire itself fell apart into smaller principalities. The Etruscans of Lebanon, the Ammonites of the Transjordan and Arabian Nabateans represented independent principalities that broke away from Seleucid control. Hyrcanus was determined to take advantage of the dissipating Seleucid Empire to increase the Judean state. Hyrcanus also raised a new mercenary army that's strong contrast with the Judean forces that were defeated by Antiochus VII. The Judean population was probably still recovering from the attack of Antiochus and therefore could not provide enough able men for Hyrcanus-led army. John Hyrcanus' army was supported by the Judean state once again by funds that Hyrcanus removed from the tomb of David. John Hyrcanus' first conquest was an invasion of the Transjordan in 110 BCE. John Hyrcanus' mercenary army laid siege to the city of Medeba and took it after a 6-month siege. After these victories, Hyrcanus went north towards Shechem, Mount Gerizim. The city of Shechem was reduced to a village and the Samaritan temple on Mount Gerizim was destroyed. This military action against Shechem has been dated archaeologically around 111 to 110 BCE. Destroying the Samaritan temple on Mount Gerizim helped ameliorate John Hyrcanus' status among religious elite and common Jews who detested the temple of Yahweh outside of Jerusalem. Hyrcanus also initiated a military campaign against the Idumean Edomites. During this campaign, Hyrcanus conquered Adora, Maresha, and other Idumean towns. Hyrcanus then instituted forced conversion on the Idumeans to Judaism. This was an unprecedented move for the Judean ruler. Deuteronomy 7. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them thy daughters. Thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy sons from following me, and they may serve other gods, so will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, Isaac, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy, and with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if ye hearken to these judgments and keep and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. And he will love thee and bless thee and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy womb, and the fruit of thy land, thy corn and thy wine, thine oil, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep, and the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee. Thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be male or female barren among you, or among your cattle. And the Lord will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of evil diseases of Egypt, which thou knowest, upon thee, but will lay them upon all them that hate thee. Again, the blessing of Isaac, Genesis 27. He went to his father and said, My father. Yes, my son, he answered. Who is it? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field, and the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." According to the Oxford Reference, the forced conversion of the Idumeans Edomites to Judaism by John Hyrcanus, 135 to 105 BCE, is the only such record case for forced conversion to Judaism. Idumea, Idumean. The Bible meaning is red or Edom, Old Testament, name of region, New Testament, Strong Concordance. Idumea is the name given to the land controlled by the descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother, known as Edomites, Genesis 25. Throughout their history, they would have a troubled relationship with Israel. The Edomites who would come to populate Idumea first lived in an area southeast, south, and southwest of the Dead Sea, with their capital being Bozrah. Sometimes after Jerusalem's destruction in 586 BC, however, the land they occupied was destroyed in fulfillment of prophecy. Malachi 1:1. Seeking refuge, the Edomites migrated west and settled in former Judean territory, roughly in around the city of Hebron. The area they controlled was eventually referred to as Idumea, a part of which was incorporated into the Roman province of Judea. Around 72 BC, Antipas, one of Idumea, an Edomite whose ancestors converted to Judaism, produces a son named Herod. It is this son, later known as Herod the Great, who would ultimately begin a ruling dynasty that would last more than 125 years. Herod's rebuilding of Jerusalem's temple provides the backdrop for many New Testament events, including the fulfillment of the destruction prophesied by Jesus in Matthew 24. A vain man given to impulsive rage, he commands the slaughtering of innocent male babies in Bethlehem in an attempt to murder Christ. Herod the Great was a Roman-like king of Judea. He was born in Idumea, south of Judea. He was the second son of Antipas the Idumean, a high-ranking official under Ethnarch Hyrcanus II, and Cypros, a Nabatean Arab princess from the city of Petra in what is now Jordan. Herod's father was by descent an Edomite, whose ancestors had converted to Judaism. Herod was raised a Jew. Strabo, a contemporary, held that the Idumeans, whom he identified as Nabatean origin, constituted the majority of the population of western Judea, where they commingled with the Judeans and adopted their customs. This is a view shared also by some modern scholarly work which consider Idumeans as of Arab or Nabatean origins. Thus, Herod was ethnically an Arab from both sides. Herod's rise to power is largely due to his father's good relations with Julius Caesar, who entrusted Antipas with the public affairs of Judea. Herod, Antipas' son, was appointed provincial governor in Galilee in ca. 47 BCE, when Herod was about either 25 or 28 years old, and where he faithfully farmed the taxes of the region for the Roman Senate, and where he met the success in ridding that region of bandits. Antipas' elder son, Faisal, served in the same capacity as governor of Jerusalem. During this time, the young Herod cultivated a good relationship with Sextus Caesar, the acting Roman governor of Syria, who appointed Herod as general of Syria and Samaria, greatly expanding his realm of influence. He enjoyed the backing of Rome, but his brutality was condemned by Sanhedrin. When yet a private man, Herod had determined to punish Hyrcanus, the king who had once summoned Herod to stand trial for murder. but was restrained from doing so by intervention of his father and his elder brother. Herod's rule marked a new beginning in the history of Judea. Judea had been ruled autonomously by the Hasmonean kings from 140 until 63 BCE. The Hasmonean kings retained their titles but became clients of Rome after the conquest of Pompeii in 63 BCE. Herod overthrew the Hasmonean Antigonus in a 3-year-long war between 37 and 34 BCE, ruled under Roman overlordship until his death, ca. 4 BCE, and officially passed on the throne to his sons. Mariamne I, also called Mariamne the Hasmonean, was a Hasmonean princess and second wife of Herod the Great. She was known for her great beauty, as was her brother Aristobulus III. Herod's fear of his rivals, the Hasmoneans, led him to execute all of the prominent members of the family, including Mariamne. So Herod the Great married into the Hasmonean dynasty, and the Hasmonean dynasty was a ruling dynasty of Judea and surrounding regions during classical antiquity. The dynasty ruled Judea semi-autonomously from the Seleucid Empire, and from roughly 110 BCE, with the empire disintegrating, Judea gained further autonomy and expanded into the neighboring regions of Samaria, Galilee, Turia, Perea, and Idumea. The Hasmonean dynasty had survived for 103 years before yielding to the Herodian dynasty in 37 BCE. The installation of Herod the Great and Idumean as king in 37 BCE made Judea a Roman client state and marked the end of the Hasmonean dynasty. Even then, Herod tried to bolster the legitimacy of his reign by marrying a Hasmonean princess, Mariamne, and planning to drown the last male Hasmonean heir in his Jericho palace in 6 Common Era. Rome joined Judea proper, Samaria, and Idumea in the Roman province of Judea in 44 CE. Rome installed the rule of a procurator side by side with the rule of the Herodian kings, specifically Agrippa I and Agrippa II. The Herodian Tetrarchy was formed following the death of Herod the Great in 4 BCE, when his kingdom was divided between his sons Herod Archelaus as ethnarch, Herod Antipas and Philip as tetrarchs in inheritance, while Herod's sister Salome I briefly ruled a toparchy of Jamnia. Upon the disposition of Herod Archelaus in 6 Common Era, his territories, Judea, Samaria, and Idumea, were transformed into Roman province. With the death of Salome I in 10 CE, her domain was also incorporated into the province. However, other parts of the Herodian Tetrarchy continued to function under Herodians. Thus, Philip the Tetrarch ruled Batanea with Trachonitis, as well as Auronitis until 34 CE. His domain later being incorporated into the province of Syria. While Herod Antipas ruled Galilee and Perea until 39 CE, the last notable Herodian ruler from some level of independence was Agrippa I, who was even granted the Judea province, though with his death in 44 CE, the provincial status of Judea was restored for good. Later Herodians included Herod of Chalcis, Aristobulus of Chalcis, and Agrippa II, the last of the Herodian dynasty, were given rule over the kingdom of Chalcis, a Roman vassal state. Agrippa II died childless, and thus Chalcis was incorporated into the province of Syria. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. And I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. Genesis 3:15. King Herod the Great was the first of the Herodian line of Idumean kings of Judea. Herod the Great persecuted the Jews. The start of Herod's reign was marked by bloodshed. His first aim was to establish his rule on a more solid base using political acumen. Almost immediately he sent envoys to the Parthian king to get Hyrcanus back from Babylon. The Parthian king was happy to let him go, because he was becoming dangerously popular among the Jews living in Babylonia. Although Hyrcanus was unfit to become high priest again, Herod kept his father-in-law in high esteem. The support of the old monarch gave an appearance of legality to his own rule. The new king started an extensive building program, new walls of Jerusalem and a citadel, which guarded its temple. The fortress was called Antonia, in order to please Herod's patron Mark Antony. Coins were minted in his own name and showed an incense burner on a tripod, intended to signify Herod's care for a Mosaic law. And the new king continued to please the Romans to make sure that they would continue their support. He sent lavish gifts to their representative in the east, Mark Antony, and to his mistress, the Egyptian queen Cleopatra. These gifts almost were Herod's demise. The relations between Mark Antony and Cleopatra in the east, and on the other hand, Octavian and the Senate in the west, became strained, and civil war broke out in 31 BC. It did not last very long. In August, the western leader defeated the eastern leader, who fled to Alexandria. For the first time in his life, Herod had aligned himself with a loser. Herod's position was still insecure with the Jews. He continued his building policy to win them over. A severe earthquake in 31 BC had destroyed many houses, killing thousands of people. In Jerusalem, the king built a new market, an amphitheater, a theater, a new building where the Sanhedrin could convene, a new royal palace, and lastly, in 20 BC, he started to rebuild the temple, and there were other cities where he ordered new buildings to be placed. Jericho and Samaria are examples. New fortresses served the security of both Jews and their king, Herodian, Maccareus, and Masada among them. But Herod's crowning achievement was a new port called Caesarea, in honor of the emperor. The harbour was called Sebastos. The Greek translation of Augustus was built to rival Alexandria in a land trade to Arabia, where spices, perfume, and incense were imported. It was not an oriental town like Jerusalem. It was laid out on a Greek grid plan with a market, an aqueduct, government offices, baths, villas, and a circus, and pagan temples. The most important of these was the temple where the emperor was worshipped. It commanded the port. Clearly, Herod was not a Jewish but a Roman king. He sometimes would revert to violence, employing mercenaries and secret police to enforce order. He had become the ruler of the Jews with Roman help, and he boasted to be Philo-Caesar, the emperor's friend. On top of the gate of the new temple, a golden eagle was erected, a symbol of Roman power in the heart of the holy city, presented by all pious believers. Worse, Augustus ordered and paid the priests of the temple to sacrifice twice a day on behalf of himself. The Roman Senate and the people, Herod clearly added to the chaos and occupation of Israel. He was hated by the Jews, as were his sons after him. Herod evoked a hatred of the Jews because he was appointed their king as a non-Jew. He took additional control away from them in terms of affairs. He took their money. He built Greek-like buildings and dedicated them to the Romans. He transgressed the Mosaic law. He employed violence, including secret police, to persecute them. Matthew 2. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. The Herods were instrumental in the persecution of the early church and the apostles and the remnant of Israel. Herod Antipas, co-conspirator in Jesus' death. Herod Antipas was one of the co-conspirators who carried out the condemnation and execution of Jesus Christ. More than 30 years earlier, his father Herod the Great had tried but failed to murder the young Jesus by slaughtering all the boys under 2 years old in Bethlehem. But Joseph, Mary, and Jesus had already fled to Egypt. Herod came from a family of political schemers. He used Jesus to gain favor with the Romans and the powerful Jewish council, the Sanhedrin. Pharisees, Sadducees, Edomites, Great Sanhedrin. Around 60 BC, the Roman triumvirate Pompey brought Judea under Roman rule. He pushed all the Jews into the areas of Galilee, Jericho, and Jerusalem. Then he settled Greeks and Syrians in the rest of the land of Palestine. Originally, Galilee was settled by the tribe of Benjamin, who always followed the tribe of Judah. A few years earlier, Hyrcanus, a descendant of the Maccabees, conquered the land of Idumea. Idumea was the homeland of the Edomites. He forced all Edomites to be circumcised and follow the Jewish laws. This was a big mistake. They were told by God never to mix with Edomites. The Jewish Encyclopedia 1903 edition says under their heading Edom. They were then incorporated with the Jewish nation, and their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea. From this time the Idumeans ceased to be a separate nation, though the name Idumea still exists in time of Jerome. The Edomites were descendants of Esau. Esau married into the families of the Canaanites. The Canaanites were the people that God told Moses and the Israelites to kill and drive out of the land of Canaan. They were warned never to mix or marry with Canaanites. God gave Edom the land south of Judea. They were driven westward towards the Nabateans to the area that became Idumea. Their border was only 19 miles from Jerusalem. Flavius Josephus, who lived in 37 AD and 100 AD, confirms Edomites' occupation in southern Judea. That country is called Judea, and the people Jews, and this name is given also to many as embrace the religion Judaism, though of other nations. But then, upon what foundation so good a governor as Hyrcanus, grandson of Matthias, patriarch of the Maccabees, a family of Judahite patriots of 2nd and 1st centuries BC, took upon himself to compel these Idumean Edomites either to become Jews or to leave their country, deserves great consideration. I suppose it was because they had long ago been driven out of the land of Edom, and had seized on and possessed the tribe of Simeon, the land, not the people, and all the southern part of the tribe of Judah, which was the peculiar inheritance of the worshippers of the true God without idolatry. So the land of Palestine at the time of the Messiah was very diverse with many nationalities. The word Jews in scripture refers to the inhabitants of the land, but it can also mean the tribe of Judah. In some cases, the name of the land of Palestine was called Judea because they combined the name Judah and Idumea. Now at the time of the Messiah, the Sadducees were in control of the temple. Pharisees were the synagogue leaders. According to the NC Britannica and Philo, there were 6,000 Pharisees during the time of the Messiah. Some had to be non-Jews and Edomites. When Herod came to power, he solidified his position by bringing in relatives from Idumea and appointing many non-Jews to important positions. He had killed the entire Sanhedrin except Hillel and Shammai. Herod was practicing Judaism, as many Edomites and Nabateans had been commingled with the Jews and adopted their customs. Herod, First Encyclopedia Judica. Notice the scriptures below. They, Edomites, were called the Herodians in scripture and were politically aligned with Herod. They plotted with Pharisees to kill the Messiah. Matthew 22:16. And they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that thou art true. Teach us the way of God in truth, and carest not for anyone, for thou regardest not the person of men. Mark 3:6. And the Pharisees went out, and straightway the Herodians took counsel against him, how they might destroy him. Mark 12:13. And they send unto him certain of the Pharisees and of the Herodians, that they might catch him in talk. The Bible also proves that some of the Pharisees were Edomites. Notice the verse below. John 8:3. They answered him, We be Abraham's seed, and we were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, ye shall be made free? The Pharisees told the Messiah that they had never gone into bondage. This could only appear to the Edomites because the tribe of Judah was taken into captivity in 585 BC by Babylon. They would have never told the Messiah that they never went into captivity. This verse proves that Edomites were mixed among the Pharisees. Sanhedrin. The word Sanhedrin refers to a religious court in the time of Christ. There were two Sanhedrins operating in Jerusalem, the first of which was 23 members court run by the Sadducees that handled local affairs. Its larger counterpart, the Great Sanhedrin, was comprised of 70 elders with a president, who in the time of Jesus was Gamaliel. Acts 5:25 shows this group and the Great Sanhedrin coming together to discuss the problem of the Christians. The Great Sanhedrin functioned much like a combination of the Senate and the Supreme Court, and most of its members at the time of the crucifixion were Pharisees from the school of Shammai. You will note in the book of Acts that Gamaliel, the president of the Great Sanhedrin, encouraged tolerance of the Christians but because he and his followers were outnumbered by Sadducees and Pharisees, the great Sanhedrin ultimately elected to persecute the Christians. At the trial of Jesus before the elders of Israel, Gamaliel may not have been present. If he had, the circumstance may have turned out quite differently. The trial held to try Jesus was hurriedly assembled and included almost across the board members who were either Sadducees or Pharisees from the school of Shammai. It is possible that Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea represented the school of Hillel. In the second temple, the temple of Herod, the great Sanhedrin met in the temple of Jerusalem, in a building called the Hall of Hewn Stones. The great Sanhedrin convened every day except festivals and the Sabbath day Shabbat. The Hall of Hewn Stones, also known as the Chamber of Hewn Stones, was the meeting place or council chamber of the Sanhedrin during the Second Temple period, 6th century BCE, 1st century CE. The Talmud deduces that it was built into the north wall of the temple in Jerusalem, half inside the sanctuary and half outside, with doors providing access both to the temple and the outside. The chamber is said to have resembled a basilica in appearance, having two entrances, one in the east and one in the west. Matthew 23. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. So, as can be seen, there were many Idumeans in prominent positions in Judea in the time of Jesus, and they were in positions to persecute the saints. So the ancient battle of the serpent or the dragon was still happening in Roman Judea. It's Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel. And the old battle between the two brothers, Esau and Jacob, was still continuing on. In the next video, I'll continue on to King Herod the Great's son, Herod Antipas. So that will be continued in third video of Are we in the 1,000-year reign? And who are the Herods?